Welcome to the Texas Conflict Coach radio program. If you've ever experienced or engaged in destructive or unresolved conflict, then you know it leads to broken relationships, distrust, and damaging results. Our program will help you manage and resolve conflict effectively with strategies, valuable resources, and support. Since 2009, our radio program hosted guest experts from around the globe sharing their perspectives, experiences, and expertise while giving you food for thought. If you can't listen live, then download and listen to any of our 300-plus podcasts in our library at texasconflictcoach.com. So sit back, relax, or join the conversation every Tuesday evening, or tweet us at TXConflictCoach.
Hello, I am your co-host, Yvette Watson, along with Patty Porter. In tonight's episode, Embracing Cultural Differences Requires Challenging Your Mindset, we will be speaking with Luis Ore from Peru. Our focus in our Cultural and Conflict series is about how globalization is making our world smaller with cross-cultural situations at the core. Even though diversity can be a powerful source for creativity, adaptability, and innovation, the potential for conflict increases, requiring even more attention to how we deal with differences and how we work together. People's actions reflect people's thinking. One challenge we all face is the way we think about the parties involved in any conflicting situation. When interacting with others, people assume and attribute intentions to others. An all-or-nothing thinking and a right versus wrong mindset lead people to play blame games and get stuck judging others instead of looking forward to resolve the matter at hand. Can we get unstuck? Luis E. Ore is CEO of a training and development consulting firm specializing in negotiation, consensus building, and dispute resolution. Luis assists businesses and organizations with organizational negotiation capabilities, building cross-cultural and international negotiations, strategic alliances development, organizational changes, deal mediation, dispute resolution system design, foreign direct investment, and international development, especially between the United States of America and Latin American countries. Luis has master's degrees with focuses on conflict management, organizational and cross-cultural communication, a JD from the University of Lima, which is in Peru, and extensive training in negotiations and conflict management. He previously practiced law in Peru in the private sector and worked with the Peruvian government. We invite you to join us in the chat room at www.blogtalkradio.com/Texas Conflict Coach. We are also running a live Twitter feed at #TCC Radio. Hi, Luis. Welcome to the program.
Be here.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty excited to be with you guys.
We're excited to have you. Patty, how are you doing?
Oh, great. I'm really excited about having Luis as an international guest speaker. So great. So, Yvette, back to you.
Yes, thank you, Patty. So, Luis, how did you get into the field of conflict management and your interest in working with culture and conflict?
Oh, that's a great question. I normally present myself as a reform attorney because I used to practice law for several years till I realized that the best way to deal with conflicting situations was not the court system, but other ways like communication, negotiation, mediation, and trying to understand the other. After many years, I went to the United States to pursue a master's degree in conflict management. And then I got involved with the Association for Conflict Resolution. I became chair of the international section and got involved with the American Bar Association. I was vice chair of the International Development Committee. So things happen. I had a dream, I guess, and it came through. But I think that I can blame, even though I don't like to play blame games. I blame my father because I think he planted a book. Somehow I ran into this book, Get Into Yes, written by Roger Fisher and William Ury, and that triggered something in me that I said, oh, this is great. And then it was 1998. I finished law school. I was working as an attorney, and then things kept happening and running into more situations that make me think about negotiation, mediation, and other alternative dispute resolutions, ways to deal with conflict, and that's how things happen. I end up in the United States. I ran into this beautiful woman. She said, it's beautiful that you're from Peru, but I'm from Kentucky, so we can live in the United States. So we left there for almost, we did live there for almost 10 years. And then recently, 2 years ago, I came back to Peru because the Peruvian government is having some conflicting situations, and they found me and they want some help. So I came to Peru.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing your extensive background in negotiation and conflict resolution and being a lawyer. So how do you define cultural awareness and understanding?
Okay. I think that the simplest way to define cultural awareness is the ability or the capacity that we have to separate observation from interpretation. As simple as that. Our capacity to separate observation from interpretation. Because stereotypes are a major barrier in communicating across cultures. We tend to make judgment based on our own cultural bias. And we evaluate others' behaviors as good or as bad with our own cultural frames, values, beliefs. So we tend to give interpretation and evaluate behaviors before we really understand them. So the problem is that we tend to jump into conclusions without thinking about how we are thinking, if that makes sense.
Okay, so what you're saying is cultural awareness is the ability to separate observation from interpretation?
Correct.
Correct, okay. Well, thank you for that. Patty, I'm going to send it over to you now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Yvette, for getting us started this evening. And I really appreciate, Luis, you being part of our Cultural and Conflict series. We've had some very interesting dialogues with a number of guests, and this is probably one of the very simple and yet powerful definitions that you just gave, about cultural awareness and understanding. And the fact is, you're right. I liked what you said earlier, too, about, this is not about getting into the blame game. And a lot of times that blame game is based on, these biases that we have, these stereotypes that we have, and yet you were like, but I got to blame my father for getting that book to me, getting to you. So I love that element of it. So because we jump to conclusions sometimes, and we make some false assumptions about people based on these biases that we have, what really is the mindset that you feel people need to have when they're dealing with cultural differences? I mean, something that could be very, very, very significantly different from me. What is the mindset that I need to really have?
We need to be open. And I guess it's easier to say it than to do it, but our minds need to be a little bit open. We need to try to suspend our judgment, but to do that, we need to realize that we have some judgment. So we need to be sincerely and genuinely curious to learn about the other. We need to be genuine and sincere with the motive to, I want to learn about the other one. So, as you said, the blame game, the mindset that we should not have is that either-or mindset, the right or wrong, that kind of mindset. We all are different, and we collect information differently, we filter information differently, and we process information in our big or little heads, and we reach conclusions. But in reality, we have selective perceptions or perspectives. And we need to be open, and maybe we are not right, or, it's not either right or wrong. It's just different.
So it's like setting aside the rightness that we often feel, and especially when we're in conflict about some major differences, the more we feel we're right. And so setting that aside is not an easy task for a lot of people. Do you have a story or an example about where being open-minded and suspending judgment has really worked in dealing with these cultural differences?
Yes, I can give you a couple examples of my time living in the United States. I was called into a company because the supervisors or the management of the company were thinking, well, something is not going well here, production is going down, and they were supposedly many complaints about some supervisor. And this is an American company in the south of the United States. And many of the workers were immigrants, refugees, and Hispanics. And this is a very a very deep in the woods, if you want, company. And employees were accusing, in quotes, that this supervisor is mistreating them and is racist, and he doesn't know how to deal with us, and, well, there was a problem there. And the company didn't have any idea. They didn't know what to do. So they called me and said, well, Luis, you are a mediator, you are Hispanic, so maybe you can help us out here. So I went to this company, and I engaged in a conversation with these employees, were 6 or 7 employees, and they were having the same perspective about the supervisor. And when finally I had the opportunity to talk with the supervisor was with the belief that, well, these people are here in this country, they look different, I don't like them, they have these costumes that they drink outside, they hang out in front of the porch, on the front porch of the house, they don't hang out inside their houses, so they have all these stereotypes in his head, the supervisor. And after a deeper conversation, after a while, asking what's important for this gentleman, for this supervisor, he realized that he doesn't have to love these Hispanic employees. But when he realized that, well, these guys are different, and if I work with them better, I will have a better production, or if I treat them better, I will have a more productive teams, I will look good. So at the end, he was more welcoming, if you will, to the differences, because it was in his own benefit to behave in a more positive way.
Okay, so this is a really very typical example, and of course this is one you shared, being a U.S. company, and it is very typical of what you described, especially when a supervisor is experiencing a population of these 6 to 7 employees who are so different from his own beliefs, his own way of growing up, his own beliefs and behaviors, customs, and all of those things. And so part of it was even though he didn't start off being open-minded and suspending judgment, it sounds like from the conversation that you were able to engage with him and possibly the others, that maybe you were able to shift him. So like you said, he began to welcome some of those differences. Right. So he might not have started that way, but it sounds like from that conversation you were able to help him shift that mindset.
Right. Yeah.
So let me just let listeners know who are tuning in. We have some folks in the chat room, and we appreciate you joining us here. If you have questions or comments, please type them into the chat box, and we'll try to bring them into the radio program. We also have a live Twitter feed going on right now. If you'll use the hashtag TCC Radio, you can also comment there. Again, you are listening to the Texas Conflict Coach Blog Talk Radio program, and as part of our Culture and Conflict series, we have Luis Ore, and that's O-R-E, from Peru, with us on the line now. And so, Yvette, I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right, thank you, Patty. Luis, what are some approaches for taking the next step to overcome the fear, assumptions, and conflict avoidance when dealing with a different culture?
Mm-hmm. So what can be done?
Mm-hmm.
And I will insist, suspend judgment. To increase our own, we should increase awareness of our own preconceptions and assumptions and stereotypes that we encounter. So increase your own preconceptions, assumptions, and stereotypes of cultures you encounter. We need to learn more about other cultures, just to be curious, to learn about the other. Try to understand their behavior from their own perspective. So do not judge their behavior with your own frames or paradigms or way of thinking, or with my own cultural bias, right? And just to be clear, to understand doesn't mean to agree. So we can understand and just don't agree with it. So we need first try to understand the other's actions, behaviors, and reactions. An expression that I learned in the United States that I like a lot is hold your fire or hold your horses. Don't react. Don't shoot from the hip, because that's what most of the people do. And we do not question our own thinking. So ask yourself why you are thinking the way you are thinking. So challenge your own thinking, your own assumptions. As this William Ury says, we all are reaction machines, and we normally act without thinking. And he talks about this. Try to go to the balcony, which is a mental place to take perspective. Just ask yourself if you are looking at the whole picture. Is there any other information that you are missing? What am I considering or factoring in to think the way I'm doing it? So think about how you are thinking. Is there any other way to see it? Are there any other possible explanations? That's mainly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for those. I like what you said, hold your fire, don't react. Because, oftentimes we are quick to react to something without thinking it all the way through. So thank you for those tips. Learning about other cultures, you can understand them, but you don't have to agree. And ask yourself why. Why are you thinking that way? So, Luis, how do you prepare to engage with the indigenous people in Peru?
Yes. Some of my work in Peru has to do with engaging or trying to foster some understanding between rural areas or countryside areas and city-side areas, if you will, because I work in the extractive industry. I work with mining, oil, gas companies, with local communities, local indigenous groups, with local government. And the problem is, or the challenge that we have, is that in the same country, they have different cultures. You have people from the highlands, and you have that they have their own beliefs, their own systems. They, for instance, they feel that they belong to the land where they live. It's not that they own the land. They are part of the land, okay? And you have mining companies that, for instance, come from either from Lima or from some other city with the belief that, well, the land is a piece of land and you just buy it and sell it. And something so simple that could be simple for people saying, well, those are property rights. We need to buy and sell. Well, for some other people, this is not property rights. This is more like identity issues. I'm part of the land. So you're saying that you want to come here and purchase my land because you want to do some sort of development, and you are offering me some development, you're going to give me money. And then what I'm going to do with the money, and how am I going to deal with the guiltness, if you will, of leaving my land? That was part of me. So what I do to prepare, I don't know if it's part of my preparation, but I try to have these conversations with the parties that I will be engaging in some endeavor, and I try to walk them through their own thinking and help them realize that there might be a different views of or your actions or what you are going to be doing or your business activity is going to be seen differently by other people.
Okay.
So yeah, it's having some cultural awareness conversation, if you will.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that story with us and giving us a little detail into your the company that you work with, the mining, oil, and gas company. So, Luis, we always ask the guests for an assignment for the week / a call to action. What assignment do you want to leave for the guests this evening?
Okay. I can give you 2 assignments.
Okay.
One that is closer to my heart, and I will tell anybody who's listening to us, go out and find a Peruvian restaurant and try the beautiful cuisine that we have. And that even food eating will give you literally a different flavor, and I don't know, even the place smells different.
Okay.
Right? That's one thing. But other thing that I will suggest is try to be more observant or observe a cultural situation. I don't know if an Hispanic market or in an area of your town when you have refugees, in an international neighborhood, and see what's going on there and reflect on your own assumptions. So see something that is different to your way of doing things, and try to think maybe try to give 3 different explanations why they are doing what they are doing and how they are doing it. So just try to find a different situation of your normal situations and try to give 3 different explanations of why that thing is happening the way it's happening. Does it make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. So your 2 call to actions were for our listeners to find a Peruvian restaurant. Is there anything in particular that they should try at this Peruvian restaurant?
The safest dish is called lomo saltado, which when I introduced it to my wife, I think that's how I start gaining her heart, because I cook for her. It was I name it jumped steak, and that's jumped steak is a sweet way to say saute, when you saute something in the fry pan. So lomo saltado, that's something easy, and it has onions, tomato, steak, and rice, and even French fries. By the way, the potato is originally from Peru. You know that, right?
No.
Yes.
I don't think I've never eaten at a Peruvian restaurant. Have you, Yvette?
I have not. I have to find one.
Yeah, me too. But I liked what you said. Even just food is a great way of bringing people together, and not just bringing people together to be curious. You go to the restaurant and you try something new, but even just engaging. Not only engaging the waiter or the waitress and just having some cultural exchange, if you will, but even just observing how people act in the restaurant. Could even be, like you said, the Hispanic market. It could be anywhere. But what are the things that come up, even just sitting in the restaurant, and you're watching people. My husband and I, we love to go to local restaurants that are where the locals like to go, but not like tourist or some popular. We love going to those places, and we sit and we observe and we watch everything, and you could be the best conflict management practitioner, mediator, conflict coach, or whatever, but guess what? We're not perfect. We're going to have our judgments. We're going to have our opinions, and so we also have to be very careful to be like, well, okay, what judgment's coming up for me right now as I'm watching in this restaurant, or wherever you might be in this market. So I think that we have to also not put ourselves aside and say, well, we don't do that because we're neutral and we have people have these conversations. We do that. And so it's a constant conscious work in motion that we have to do.
Yeah. So that's curious what you're saying triggers some thoughts, which is many people that I know study, for instance, Spanish in their school in the United States. And they say, well, I don't speak Spanish because I'm not good at it. I'm not good at that. And that comes from your either-or mindset. I'm right or wrong. Am I competent or not? But what people don't realize is that if you try to say a couple of words from the language of the other person you are interacting with, the other person will appreciate that. I will see, wow, this other person is making an effort to say something, even if it sounds funny. But that's appreciated by the other one.
And they're not. I don't think they're laughing, but I don't think that they're laughing at you to necessarily demean you. They're laughing because they think it's. I think they really appreciate that. Yes,
and I say they laugh with you. They don't laugh at you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
And you said something that, yes, food is one thing, eating together. And the other thing is music and dance. So those are the two safest ways, I think, to get to know other culture. In Kentucky, where I used to live, we used to have this taste of Latin America. And it was one evening a year for fundraising, and we have some Hispanic dances from all over Latin America and Hispanic food from Salvador, from Peru, from other places.
Well, I'm going to say one thing about what you just mentioned about music and dance, because here in San Antonio, which is where I live now, and I don't know if it's celebrated in Peru, but, Halloween is right around the corner, and here a huge celebration of the Dia de los Muertos, and the day after, right? And so the Hispanic people here really celebrate the dead as a way to honor those people who have gone on. And so there'll be skeletons and picnics at the cemetery, and the chairs. I mean, it's a big celebration. And so if you're not used to that, and people would come to San Antonio and they go to a restaurant, and they see this huge display of all their relatives who are skeletons dressed in costumes, and some of the reactions from tourists would be, oh, that's bizarre, or that's really dark, or they didn't have any understanding that this was not about evil and devil worship, or it was totally the opposite. And so I'm glad you brought up about the dance and music, because this is just another example of how people's assumptions and judgments can get in the way.
Yeah,
very good.
Here they do the same. They bring food they serve plates for the people who's already dead.
Yes.
So if you have 5 people going to see one film, you have 6 plates, and then you have maybe a band or even music, playing and dancing and drinking and just enjoying together.
Yes, absolutely. Very different experience. Well, we're coming to a close, so Yvette, what other closing things, I know before we have Luis do his final message, maybe some contact information or anything that Luis wants to let the listening audience know about?
So, Luis, is there anything you want to let the audience know about? I know they can reach you via Twitter, via LinkedIn at pe.linkedin.com/IN/Luis Ore, and that's LUISORE. Is there an email address or a website or something that you would like to leave with the listeners?
I have several email addresses, but I think an easy one is my name backwards, which is ORE, is ORELUIS @hotmail.com.
So Ore Luis at Hotmail. Okay.
Yes, hotmail.com. But you can Google my name and something will pop out. Yeah, you can find me in YouTube. You can find me. I'm there. I'm outside in the how do you call that? The internet space, I guess. Yeah, I'm there.
All right. Well, thank you for that contact information. Now, Luis, is there a final message that you want to leave with our listeners?
I guess I can just recap and say that the secret to increase cultural awareness is to separate observation from interpretation. Challenge your assumptions and try to figure out if there any information you are not considering, and ask yourself why you are thinking the way you are thinking. That's
wonderful.
That's it.
Thank you so much, Luis, for your time. And Patty, thank you for allowing me to co-host with you.
It was a wonderful experience to do that with you, Yvette. And Luis, thank you so much. We've known each other for a long time, and I'm so glad that we could have you finally on our program.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being with you guys. I enjoyed it.
All right. Good night, listeners, and thank you for joining us in the chat room and in the Twitter feed. Good night.
Thank you for listening to the Texas Conflict Coach. We hope you've enjoyed the program. You can find over 300 podcasts archived to listen at your own convenience at texasconflictcoach.com, or download the podcast at iTunes or Stitcher Radio. To learn about upcoming radio programs and resources, sign up for our monthly e-newsletter.